Hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Teena Jha. You're watching Perspective. Upon conclusion of the 15th BRICS Summit in South Africa, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is now in Greece on his first official visit to the country. Now, this is the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Greece in 40 years. During his day-long visit, the Prime Minister held wide-ranging talks with the top leadership of Greece. He also met business leaders from both sides, also interacted with the Indian community in Athens. The significance of the visit, what it means for India-Greece relations, and how are both sides looking to elevate their ties. All this and much more in perspective today with two distinguished panelists who are joining us on the program today. I'm delighted to have with me in the studio former Ambassador Dilip Sinha. Mr. Sinha served as the Ambassador of India to Greece from 2007 to 2010. And joining us virtually is Dr. Bhaskar Balakrishnan, former Ambassador. He was the Ambassador of India to Greece from May 2005 to September 2007. Thank you to both my guests for joining me on the program today. Dr. Balakrishnan, allow me to begin the program today with you. Help us and our viewers understand the significance of this visit. We understand this is the first at the Prime Ministerial level in 40 years, but the significance and the outcome of this maiden visit of the Prime Minister to Greece.
Yeah, I think this is a long overdue visit by an Indian Prime Minister, although of course we have had exchanges of visits of presidents from both sides. But Prime Minister's visit was long overdue. Greece has been always a supporter of India's permanent seat in the UN Security Council. And it has also been very helpful in its position as far as Kashmir is concerned in India. Then, of course, Greece has an important strategic location in the Eastern Mediterranean. In fact, throughout history, Greece's location and as the really controlling country of the Eastern Mediterranean has been always apparent, right from the time of the Ottoman Empire right down to World War II. So it's an important country if we want to develop logistics and transport routes through the Eastern Mediterranean area. And much has been made of the fact that Greece could be a logistics and transport gateway to Europe, at least the southern part of Europe and the Balkans and the hinterland. So there are a number of positive benefits from expanding our relationship, notably in the area of maritime transport, where Greece has a very strong player in the maritime sector. It has the largest Greek-controlled shipping is the largest fleet in the world. So they have a big role to play in maritime transport. So we also are looking forward to improving our maritime links with Europe through various corridors. So this visit has could have a lot of benefits. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Ambassador Sinha, with Greece, we've had a civilizational connect. But help us and our viewers understand the kind of modern-day relationship that we share, and how do you see Prime Minister's maiden visit to the country now taking it to a higher orbit of cooperation?
Yes, Teena, as you mentioned, Greece and India have civilizational ties. They go back to 2000 years. In fact, the very name India was first used by a Greek writer, Aeschylus, who used the term India for this country. And that is how then the rest of the world started calling us India. And thereafter, of course, there was Alexander and there was Seleucus and there were other huge civilizational ties between India and Greece. But that was history. Now, in modern times, also surprisingly, our political relations have always been excellent. As Dr. Balakrishnan mentioned, Greece has been extremely supportive of India on various international issues. Our views coincide on a number of issues. And we've had extremely cordial relations. But somehow, in economic terms, they have not translated into a major economic cooperation. So that is what needs to be done. Now, Greece has certain advantages. It is a member of NATO, it is a member of the European Union, and it is the largest economy of the Balkans. And it is also the closest country of the European Union to us. Now, Greece also has a very strong merchant navy. It is the largest merchant navy in the world. So these are factors that go to make Greece an extremely important economic partner for India to have. Greece can serve as a gateway to the European Union for us, as a gateway to the Balkans, and also the fact that our political relations are so good and our views on various international issues are similar, that gives us the necessary platform for us to build on. And what is good now is that our economy is booming. We have companies in India that are now capable of investing abroad, of reaching out abroad for projects. So this is a good time for us to build on it. So I hope that the present visit of the Prime Minister, which is long overdue, will lay the platform for this development, for this growth. One thing that has happened recently, for example, is that GMR, the Indian company, is building an airport in Greece. Now, this is something really big for an Indian company. But there are other companies also in India which are capable of taking on projects in Greece and building a base for India-Greece economic relations.
Okay, Dr. Balakrishnan, taking on from what Ambassador Sinha is suggesting, that it's time we harness the potential of economic cooperation. So we have a huge level of political trust, and we expect that this visit of the Prime Minister will now take the trade potential to an upswing. We've seen the trade numbers are doing fairly well in recent years. With the current numbers stand at around $2 billion. But the fact that today, India is the 5th largest economy. Greece is doing comparatively well. It's one of the fastest emerging economies in Europe. So do you see this economic potential now taking an upswing?
Yeah, I think the macroeconomic conditions are good. Greece has emerged from the economic crisis of 2008, and its economy is growing. The present government is led by a very young and dynamic Prime Minister, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, who recently won re-election, was re-elected. And so we can look forward to a period of stable government in Greece. Indian economy is also grown quite well. As I said, we have potential areas of cooperation. For example, Greece has a very big tourism sector. A lot of tourism facilities and hotels are available to invest in by Indian companies. And some companies might look at that. As I mentioned, the shipping sector, where Greece has a lot of expertise in the merchant navy. It's the biggest fleet in the world. They operate a lot of cruise ships, and there's a potential for expanding that cooperation in maritime shipping. And in fact, some Greek ship owners even at one point asked me whether India could be a hub for servicing and maintenance of merchant vessels. So these are areas. We are also trying to develop India's blue economy and our maritime economy. So that sector offers good potential. In the area of defense, the armed forces of both countries have had a lot of interactions, especially the Air Force is, we have always used Greece as a transit point for our aircraft going across to Europe or coming into India. Greece operates the F-16s, which is the main fleet they have. They also have, I think, a few Rafales. They have shown interest in India's BrahMos missile. Since many years, there have been visits by BrahMos Aerospace to Greece. So in the area of defense, also, there is a lot of potential for cooperation. You can look at the map and see Greece is almost half sea and half land. It has an enormous network of islands spread all across, including Crete, which is the biggest island there. So, its navy is extremely important for Greece and control of naval and airspace. So these are all common elements. Greece has a good agricultural sector, a large amount of production of olives and other horticultural crops, which are exported and could be a basis for food processing. We have a lot of Indian migrants in Greece, particularly in the agricultural sector. They largely come from Punjab and they work in the agricultural sector. And Prime Minister, of course, was greeted very enthusiastically by them as he arrived. Many of them, I think there are about 35, 40,000, there could be more. They have become permanent residents of Greece, and some have become Greek citizens. In fact, the town of Marathon, from which the race name comes from, has a huge Indian population. And in fact, they celebrate all the Indian festivals. So we have a lot of linkages apart from economy, culture, defense and strategic ties. And, I think this visit could kickstart a lot of cooperation.
Okay, Ambassador, the fact that Greece has a lot to offer, it can become the gateway of India to Europe. There's a lot of scope in maritime security and trade potential still remains to be tapped fully. But in the area of strategic cooperation, and if we talk about sunrise sectors, what can it be between India and Greece? And what is the other way interest? How can India be beneficial to Greece? So why is now Greece taking that interest in India, if we want to understand?
Yes, one of the areas that's a new area for cooperation is the strategic area. Recently, we have had joint naval exercises and air force exercises. These are extremely significant that our military has gone there and we have had exercises. And I understand now the Greek Navy will be coming down and there will be some exercises in the Indian Ocean jointly with India. Now, this is an area of cooperation that is extremely important for Greece. Greece is a country that is a frontier state for the European Union. It faces a major problem of migration, of illegal migration coming in from Turkey. It also has a number of islands spread out in the Aegean Sea and the Mediterranean Sea, for whose security for which is extremely important for Greece. So this is an area in which cooperation between India and Greece can be of great deal of importance to Greece as well as to India. For India, the fact that our military is able to go across to Europe and hold joint exercises there is of great significance. As Ambassador Balakrishnan mentioned, Greece has been interested in the BrahMos missile from India. So for Greece, its national security is important, and in this field, India and Greece share commonalities. India has always supported Greece on the issue of Cyprus, where Greece has a conflict plus a strong difference with Turkey because of the occupation of Northern Cyprus. Similarly, on issues which are sensitive to India, like Kashmir, Greece has been extremely considerate. So this strategic convergence is now taking the shape of cooperation in strategic areas, in military areas, and that is important for both countries, and that has a great deal of a good future.
And what about people-to-people ties? Ambassador Balakrishnan was saying about 30 to 40,000 Indians are there. They're contributing to the economy of Greece. But the fact that for any relationship to be a lasting one, people-to-people relationship has to be strong. How do we see it in both ways, India-Greece and Greece-India, in terms of migrants?
Well, for Greece, tourism is an extremely important industry. It is the second largest earner of foreign exchange, and it's contributed to the GDP after the merchant navy. And Indians are great travelers abroad, as we know. We travel abroad in very large numbers, and Greece is a tourist's delight. It has everything that a tourist wants to see. So Greece is very keen that Indian tourists go there. It has beaches, it has mountains, it has history, it has everything to offer. Some Indian films have been shot in Greece. But unfortunately, it has not picked up the way countries like New Zealand or Switzerland have picked up in the Indian psyche as a destination for Bollywood movies. But I think Greece should tap that. And if they do that, that will be a great boost for the tourism sector in Greece, and for Indians also who are constantly looking for new destinations to visit. And as I said, because of our civilizational ties, many things that Greece offers has links with India also. Then apart from tourism, you have Greeks wanting to come to India for tourism again, because and the shipping industry of Greece, which for a small country like Greece to have the largest merchant navy, means that they look for business all around the world. And as India's foreign trade grows, a lot of it will be on Greek ships. So for them, cooperation with India is extremely important. And again, as Ambassador Balakrishnan mentioned, service facilities for Greek ships in India would be extremely important because it's quite a distance away from there. So for us, it brings us business in terms of repair and maintenance of these ships, servicing those ships. So all these factors put together can make our relations, both in terms in people terms of the ordinary people, in terms of tourism, and businessmen in terms of business prospects, become extremely important.
Okay. Dr. Balakrishnan, as I was discussing with Ambassador Sinha, people-to-people ties are extremely crucial for any relationship to be a lasting one. It's said to be the bedrock of any kind of relationship. Now, of course, we've discussed about how we're working on enhancing trade potential between both countries. But as someone who stayed in the country for 3 years, how do the Greeks perceive India and the Indians? And in the times to come, looking at how both countries are emerging strong economically, how can we also tap on harnessing and strengthening people-to-people ties between India and Greece?
Yeah, I think the general perception of Indians as far as Greeks are concerned is quite positive. They're aware of the old cultural connections going back to 3,000 years. We have had cultural troops visiting Greece, performing in places like the Acropolis. Malika Sarabhai gave a big performance there, which was very well appreciated. As Ambassador Sinha mentioned, there is a good potential for tourism in Greece, attracting Indian tourists, providing facilities for our film and entertainment industry to make products there. Also, India could attract a lot of Greek tourists, and some of them could very well come for medical services in India, because India is now emerging as a kind of place to go for low cost and quality medical care. And this has been highlighted recently in many meetings in India. So that also could be exploited, drive to attract Greeks to India for medical care and treatment. The Greek population is aging, and they have a lot of people who need health care. So there is a lot of people to people in the level of universities, Greek universities and Indian universities. There is a great scope for increasing exchanges, which is hardly anything has been done. We have some Greek studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University, and we have some places where Indian studies are done in Greek universities. So in the higher education sector also, there is a good scope for exchanges amongst our universities. Investment has been mentioned as one. B2B activities, again, is something which can take off once both sides get familiar with each other's rules and regulations. So I think there is no shortage of opportunities in the people-to-people level. The media cooperation also can be another area. Media organizations from both sides can work together. Greeks are very much like Indians. A large number of Greeks have migrated abroad in search of better opportunities. So if you go to any place like London or the US, invariably you'll find in the top universities and in the top research establishments, you will find Greeks there, just like you find Indians there. So we have a lot of common issues as far as how to handle and make best use of our expatriate professionals. So that's another area where we can sort of exchange ideas. What are the ways by which we can offer better opportunities to expatriates to come back and work in the home country? So I see there's, it's really up to the imagination of both sides, both governments, and to work out what are the possibilities of cooperation. When I was going to Greece, I had the opportunity to meet Prime Minister Modi, who was then the Chief Minister of Gujarat. And one of his points, which he was very well prepared, he asked me that, is it possible to bring cruise tourism, to cruise ships to Indian coasts? So, I mean, this just goes to show that, there are very many kind of niche areas where cooperation can be built.
Ambassador Sinha, one thing that's quite interesting is there's a lot that we can do to enrich this relationship between India and Greece. But if I take you back in time, we've had ancient relationships, but it's also true that Greece has been closer to China than India for several decades. Has that also been a deterrent in terms of how rapidly our relationship should have evolved? So now we're looking at a lot of future prospects, but if you look at the time gone by, we've not been able to strengthen it as much as we could. Has China been that factor?
I don't think China has been a deterrent factor in that, but the fact that China has developed into a superpower, into a major economy in the world in the last 10 years, last 15 years, has been a factor in the extremely strong China-Greece relations and the fact that India has not been able to keep pace with that. Now, an example of that is that 15 years ago, when Greece was going through an economic crisis, it opened up two of its ports, Piraeus and Thessaloniki, for foreign investment. And both these contracts were won by Chinese companies. Eventually, only one contract materialized. That was the one in Piraeus. And the Piraeus port now has a 67% investment by Costco. And the Piraeus port, because of this Chinese investment, has risen in importance to, I think, the number 2 or number 3 position in Europe today. So that has come about because the Chinese companies had the capacity to go all the way to Greece, invest in Piraeus, and make it into a major port. Now, that capacity Indian companies did not have 15 years ago. They have slowly started developing that capacity. Like I mentioned, GMR as a company that has gone and started building an airport in Crete. This capacity did not exist in India 15 years ago. Today, we have Indian companies which are going out and handling ports outside, which again we didn't have when the Piraeus port was opened up for tender. No Indian company was in a position to even bid for it. So the fact that now our companies are acquiring that capacity gives us the possibility of becoming a major player. Now, with China, relations of the European Union have been affected by the Ukraine war and China's close relations with Russia. So many countries are slowing down in their relations with China. For example, in Greece, Huawei, the Chinese company, has been prohibited from entering the 5G sector. So that certainly opens up prospects for India and for Indians. Now, one of the good things that India and Indians have is that they have a very positive image in these countries. The Indian community living in Greece that Ambassador Balakrishnan mentioned about are extremely well integrated in that society. When I would travel around in Greece and talk to local people, they found that the Indian community was always an extremely friendly community because our people are multicultural by nature. So it's easy for them to adapt to foreign cultures. So they don't create problems. That is a great image booster for India. And so also the operations of Indian companies, if they are positive, in the case of the Piraeus port, for example, there have been a number of strikes in Piraeus port, and there have been a number of complaints that the working conditions of the workers are not according to international or European standards. So it's extremely important for business houses also when they go abroad and invest abroad to ensure that their work style and their work ethics conform to the standards of that country. So if our business are able to do this, then certainly our prospects will be extremely bright. Absolutely,
you're right. There's a positive image, Dr. Balakrishnan, the fact that India has today emerged as a strong player and as a strong alternative to China for all of these countries in the current geopolitical context. So if I may ask you the last question on India-Greece relationship in the times to come, how do you see it evolve further?
I think there are good possibilities ahead, at least in the next 3-4 years, because we have a young Greek Prime Minister who's been starting out on his new re-elected term. And this visit will really put India on the radar as far as cooperation is concerned. India's growing economic strength is also going to be a big attracting factor for Greeks. But Indian companies and Indian organizations must seize the opportunity to cooperate. They can, as I mentioned, the agricultural and food processing sector in Greece offers a lot of potential for investment. There are a lot of, there could be Greek companies who are looking for foreign investors to come in so that they can expand their capacities. So these are all opportunities. The hotel and tourism sector, I hear from friends that a number of hotels and resorts are up for grabs by Indian companies if they wish to enter that market. Ambassador Sinha correctly mentioned the labor problem in Piraeus. The Chinese have had their fingers burnt because they didn't know how to handle labor and strikes. We do know how to handle them because we are a democracy and we have independent trade unions. So, these kind of problems are not new to Indian companies. China had one advantage that they had there is no great difference between a private company in China and the state. So the state is bankrolling a lot of the BRI projects, not only in Greece, but in other Balkan countries, Italy also. Right. Now, many of these countries are having second thoughts. Italy is pulling out of BRI projects. Greece is probably looking for alternatives and would be happy to engage with India for infrastructure and logistics sector investment and projects. So energy is another area. Greece is amply endowed with solar energy. So renewable and solar energy is another great area where cooperation can be there. We could be the producers of a lot of equipment and install it there. We have in the past supplied electrical equipment to Greece from our industry. So, if you look at science and technology, again, there could be a lot of potential.
So clearly, host of opportunities for both India and Greece.
Ahead.
Right. So clearly, as both our guests suggested, there are a significant number of opportunities for both India and Greece to enrich their relationship in the times to come. Both economically are doing quite well, and it's only time that we realize the untapped potential, and we're hopeful that after this visit of the Prime Minister, which was much awaited, we'll see positive outcomes as far as elevation in ties between India and Greece are concerned. So that having been said, I'll have to wind up the program. Time allows me to take up only that much on this edition of Perspective. Thank you once again, Dr. Balakrishnan and Ambassador Sinha, for joining us on the show today and sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. And to you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well.